Alright, 13.3, lower respiratory tract. Let's see, trachea. Once the air you inhale has passed through the upper airway and many of the pollutants and impurities have been filtered out and swallowed into the digestive system, there remains the major need of getting O2 into the blood and removing CO2 from the blood. To do these, the inhaled air passes down the trachea through the bronchi and bronchioles and into the alveoli of the lungs, where these exchanges can occur. These structures form the lower respiratory tract. The flow of inhaled air now moves into the trachea, windpipe. This is a rigid tube that descends from the larynx to divide into the two main bronchi. The rigidity of the trachea is produced by 16 to 20 C-shaped rings of cartilage that form its anterior and lateral walls. The part of the C faces posteriorly and is closed by the trachealis muscle. The trachea divides into two primary main bronchi for the right and left lungs. Okay, structure of the lungs. The two lungs are made of organs of respiration and are located in the thoracic cavity. Each lung is a soft, spongy, conical organ with its base resting on the diaphragm. Its apex lies above and behind the clavicle. Its outer convex costal surface presses against the rib cage. Its inner concave surface lies alongside the mediastinum. The right lung has 3 lobes, superior, middle, and inferior. The left lung has 2 lobes, superior and inferior. The lobes are separated from each other by fissures. The heart makes a concave impression in the left lung, known as the cardiac notch. Each lung receives its bronchus, blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and nerves through its hilum. The lung's specific functional cells are called the lung parenchyma and are supported by a thin connective tissue framework called the stroma. This consists mostly of collagen and elastic fibers, and its elasticity is a factor in the lung's recoil after inhalation. A diaphragm. Suffix Greek diaphragm, musculo-ligamentous partition separating the abdominal and thoracic cavities. Diaphragmatic, pertaining to the diaphragm. Fissure, fis is split and jure is a result of, meaning deep furrow or cleft. Fissures is plural. Helium is Latin for small area. Hilum, Latin, small area. The site where the nerves and blood vessels enter and leave an organ. Hyla is plural for hilum. Hyla is plural for hilum. Spelled H-I-L-A. Lobe, Greek for lobe, subdivision of an organ or other part. Lobar, adjective, pertaining to or part of a lobe. Mediastinum, area between the lungs containing the heart, aorta, venae, I can never remember how to say that. I'm going to learn that. Cave, esophagus, and trachea. Mediastinal, adjective, pertaining to or part of the mediastinum. Parenchyma, Greek to poren beside, characteristic functional cells of a gland or organ that are supported by the connective tissue framework. Stroma, Greek for bed, connective tissue framework that supports the parenchyma of an organ or gland. Trachealis, pertaining to the trachea. Okay, structure and functions of pleura. The surface of each lung is covered with the serous membrane called the visceral pleura. At the hilum, the visceral pleura turns back on itself to form the parietal pleura, which lines the rib cage. The space between the visceral and parietal pleura is called the pleural cavity, which contains a thin film of lubricant called the pleural fluid. Okay.
Pluri.
Pleura, plural, pluri.
Sorry. Okay. The functions of the pleura and pleural fluid are to reduce friction. 1. Reduce friction. The lubricant quality of the pleural fluid enables the lungs to expand during inhalation, inspiration, and contract during expiration with minimal friction. 2nd, the functions of the pleura assist in inspiration. The pressure in the pleural cavity is lower than the pressure of the atmospheric air in the lungs. This assists the inflation of the lungs on inspiration. Separation. The pleura, medius, statinum, and pericardium protect the organs inside them to prevent infections from spreading easily. From one organ to another. Structure of bronchi. As the inhaled air continues down the respiratory tract, the trachea divides and air flows into the right and left main primary bronchi, with each lung at the hilum. In turn, the main bronchi divide into a second lobar bronchus for each lobe. There are 3 secondary bronchi in the right lung and 2 in the left lung. Each secondary bronchus divides into tertiary bronchi that supply segments of each lobe. Hey. It's good. How are you guys?
Trying to avoid the sun in her eyes.
Oh, well, at least she gets some warmth from it without having to stare right at it. All right, trachea, bronchioles, alveolus, tertiary bronchus, secondary bronchus. Okay, left main bronchus, right main bronchus. That's crazy looking. That's a latex cast of the tracheobronchial tree. Okay. Structure and functions of bronchioles and alveoli. The tertiary bronchi divide into bronchioles, which in turn divide into terminal bronchioles, and then smaller respiratory bronchioles. None of these bronchioles has cartilage in the walls, but smooth muscle enables them to dilate or constrict. These bronchioles in turn divide into thin-walled alveoli. Okay. Okay. Each alveolus is a thin-walled sac with its cells supported by a thin respiratory membrane that allows the exchange of gases with the surrounding pulmonary capillary network. About 5% of the alveolar cells secrete a detergent-like substance called surfactant that keeps the alveolar sacs from collapsing. There are approximately 300 million alveoli in the two lungs. Mechanics of respiration. A resting adult breathes 10 to 15 times per minute, inhales about 500 milliliters of air during inspiration, and exhales it during expiration. The mission is to get air into and out of the alveoli so that O2 can get into the blood and CO2 can get out of the blood. Okay, inspiration. Diaphragm contracts, vertical dimensions of thoracic cavity increase. Expiration, diaphragm relaxes, vertical dimensions of thoracic cavity decrease. Did you know? Hiccups are reflex spasms of the diaphragm causing an involuntary inhalation followed by a sudden closure of the glottis that produces an audible sound, the hic. The etiology is unknown and there's no specific medical cure. Yawning is a reflex that originates in the brainstem in response to hypoxia, boredom, or sleepiness. The exact mechanisms are not known. The diaphragm does most of the work. In inspiration, it drops down and flattens to expand the volume of the thoracic cavity and reduce the pressure in the airways. In addition, the external intercostal muscles lift the chest wall up and out to further expand the thoracic cavity. Expiration is a passive process of letting go. The diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax, and the thoracic cavity springs back to its original volume. All right. Exhale, Latin to breathe out, meaning breathe out. Exhalation, the process of breathing out. And expire and expiration. Inflate, Latin for blow up. Expand with air. Inflation, noun, process of expanding with air. Inhale, Latin to breathe in. Uh-oh. Yeah, okay, inhale, Latin to breathe in, meaning breathe in. Inhalation is the process of breathing in. Okay. Inspire, inspiration. Okay, membrane, Latin for parchment, thin layer of tissue covering a structure or cavity. Parietal, pertaining to the outer layer of a serous membrane lining the thoracic and other body cavities. Pleura, Greek for rib and side, membrane covering the lungs and lining the ribs in the thoracic cavity, pertaining to the pleura. Okay, pleurae is pertaining to the pleura, and plural also pertaining to the pleura. That's just the adjective version. Pulmonary, pertaining to the lungs and their blood supply. And surfactant, acronym for surface active agent, a protein and fat compound that reduces surface tension to hold lung alveolar walls apart.